hear me back there still? No?
Tilt it up. That's about right for the
Still
season.
works that way though. Try another mic before the sheet comes up. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you. I'm David McDonald, the president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association. On behalf of the board of directors, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you. The DNA mission is to enhance the quality of life, of residential life in the historic landmark district, protect Savannah's unique downtown environment, and advocate for public policies which support these objectives. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Without them, we can't do some of the things that we end up doing. Some of them you saw in the slides earlier, and I apologize, the bulb has blown, so we won't be able to use the projector tonight. The chief still has the slides and he can talk to them. That's why his chief, they have to be able to work on their feet quickly. While we have not been having monthly meetings during the summer, members of the board are still working on various items. One of those is managed by Joyce, and that was a revamping of the DNA website. I encourage you to look at SavannahDNA.org and see the changes that we made there. We revamped the member resource page, which provided many links to essential city services, as well as other important information. We also added a community page that highlights events taking place within our community and recognizes members for their volunteer work that they do throughout the city. We also have photos on there from various square events, so your bathrobe brunches and your evening parties. It's on camera and on the website. So let us know if you don't like it. But I encourage you to check out the new website. It really does look good. We launched that last week, I believe, correct? Just last week. The date for the holiday tour homes is December 9th. It is sold out, but you can still participate. As I said in the newsletter, the morning session was 1 hour and 40 minutes. And the whole thing was out by 8 hours, or 9 hours, incredible. A lot of interest. The woman got up at 6 a.m. in California to make sure she got her tickets. And she's looking for somebody to have coffee with because she's traveling here by herself. Go to our Facebook page and find her. It is sold out, but you can still participate by serving as docents in one of the homes or inns. In October, we will let you know how to sign up in the DNA newsletter and on our website. Once it's announced, move fast because we need fewer positions than previous years because we're cutting down on the times you have to do it. If you have questions, see Joyce McDonald. She's in the front row. She'll be able to answer them. If you are interested in having your home on the tour, also check in with Joyce. She would be delighted to talk to you about it. And we have many of the homeowners who've already volunteered to put their home on the tour this year, and for that we thank you. Our presenter tonight is someone we are all familiar with, Chief Lenny Gunther. Since taking over as chief last year, overall crime has been reduced. And looking at some recent numbers, I'll go until August 29th, Chief, I'm not sure most current numbers. These sound good. Homicides are down over 50% and rape by over 20%. Changes correctly, the numbers have changed, around 43% for homicides now. Still good, still very good compared to other cities. Overall violent crime is still down since January 1, which is very good in overall crime. Now that I stole some of your presentation, Chief, I'll introduce you. Thank you. HVAC just got fixed last week, so that might be why the bulb is broken.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Can everybody hear me? No. No?
Hold it close.
Eat the mic, they say.
Can everybody hear me?
No.
Can everybody hear me? Thank you, David. Before I get started, I have a personal message for Mr. President. My boss, City Manager, Jay Melder, told me to thank you for saving a package. That was in front of his house, about a 100-pound package that was in front of his house while he was out of town this weekend, so thank you. Because we would have taken a theft report if you didn't.
It weighed 200 pounds, it wasn't going anywhere.
I'm still curious to see what that was. Good evening, everybody. I don't know if this building likes me. The last time I was here, it was hot. Now the projector doesn't work. So, I don't know. So I did have a nifty presentation for you. My staff worked on a presentation. So I'm sure by the time we get out of here and in the parking lot, they'll be mad with me. So I'm gonna have to do something with this presentation. Maybe I'll just email Dave and he'll have it and email it to everybody.
We'll put it on the website.
We'll put it on the website.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure. It's been a couple of months, right?
Thank you.
I believe the last time I was here, I was interim chief. So some things have changed. I've been blessed to have been appointed permanent chief in January, so that's a blessing, and thank you. Before I get started with, it's not a presentation tonight, obviously, it's a conversation. We'll have a conversation. Before I get started with our conversation, I would like this opportunity to introduce some of my staff. I'll start with my executive staff right here in the front row. This is Assistant Chief Devon Adams. He oversees and commands our Field Operations Division. Next, right beside him is Assistant Chief Robert Gavin. AC Gavin oversees our Management and Administration Division. Beside him is his partner, Major Michelle Halford. She also commands the Management and Administration Division. Beside her is a new position in the police department. That's Mr. Joshua Miller. He is our Director of Police Administration. We'll talk about that a little later on in the conversation. Next to him is Major Ben Herron, who oversees our criminal investigation. And then bringing up the end is Major Shanita Young, who's Major over Field Operations. You want to stand real quick and introduce your team? I don't even know, they're important. They carry a heavy load every day.
I think everybody's familiar with Corporal Flint. He's our I have here Sergeant Amadori. Sergeant of our crime suppression unit. Also Aguilar and alongside. Last but not least, this is our new homeless.
And then, if you don't know by now, he's probably the most popular person in the room. This is Corporal Barry Lewis. He makes me look good every day, so thank you. All right, everybody. So let's talk about crime a little bit, right? So I do want to start off with some stats. So I'll talk about them because you can't see them. Mr. President spoke about it briefly before I got up here. He talked about homicides. And I will say this before I get into the numbers. One shooting, one injury, one homicide is one too many. Louder? Right. It's one too many, right? And we do everything in our power as the police department to address shootings, to address homicides, and unfortunately, we do have shootings. Unfortunately, we do have homicides. Year to date, we have 13 homicides. Year to date, we have 13 homicides. At the same time, last year, we had 23. So that's about a 43% reduction in homicides. 2021, we had the same amount, 23. So we're -10 year-to-date regarding our homicides. Our street robberies are down by 3%. Our non-fatal shootings, so when I talk about non-fatal shootings, that is someone getting shot and not dying, right? So we are down by 25%, 18% regarding our non-fatal shootings. In terms of victims being shot, we're down by 25% regarding that. But I do want to take this opportunity to talk about our domestic violence crimes that are taking place in our community. We've noticed a trend in Savannah this year. Our domestic violence incidents have increased, and it's very unfortunate. You know, I say that's the silent crime, right? Because you have victims, male and female, of all ages that are subject to this crime. Some report it, and some don't, unfortunately. We've taken measures to take a holistic approach to domestic violence. It's one thing to respond to a domestic violence incident. It's another thing to try and ensure this doesn't happen again. Have a repeat victim or a repeat suspect. In saying that, you know, our goal is to continue to educate and support and get victims the assistance that they need. A lot of them want to leave these abusive relationships, they just don't know how to leave those relationships. This is where we want to intervene and help. Assistant Chief Gavin, I tasked him with creating a domestic violence council, bring in community partners, not just law enforcement, right? We just don't know everything, we just don't. You know, community organizations, community members, victims of domestic violence to sit on this council. We have to create an atmosphere of safety. We have to advocate for our victims. And we do have to enforce domestic violence laws to the fullest extent. I will say this, if you're interested or you want more information on the SPD Domestic Violence Council, please see Assistant Chief Gavin after this meeting. I do want to flip back to property crimes. Sudden snatching has gone up. So sudden snatching is, you know, taking, you know, a piece of property from someone, just a snatching, purse snatchings or sudden snatchings. We do have an entering auto decrease, albeit by 0.3 decrease, and auto theft is down by 13%. B25, so B25, I want to talk about B25 and B26. B25, and the boundaries for B25 is MLK Boulevard to East Broad, so west to east. Gwinnett East to Whitaker, north to Oglethorpe, and then Gaston to Oglethorpe. So B25, you're looking at I need my glasses, Dave. So I need my presentation. About a 14% decrease in violent crime. There is property crime has increased though in that beat year to date. Looks like entering autos is the primary crime for this beat. Overall, this beat has an increase of about 10% in B25. B26, your boundaries are MLK Boulevard to East Broad, Oglethorpe to River Street, going north, East Broad East to President, and then the Eastern Wharf area, right? Kind of that box right there. You're looking at a 39% decrease in violent crime. You're looking at a increase in property crime, primarily, it looks like theft from vehicles again. And then, but overall total part one crime is down in this beat by 14%. So we talk about entering autos, right? Being a primary crime that we're experiencing, not only in B25 and B26, but in Savannah. So guns stolen out of vehicles continues to be an issue in Savannah. So in 2022, we had a reported 509 guns stolen, right? 509 guns stolen. Out of the 509, those guns end up, once they were stolen out of a vehicle, I can probably assure you wasn't for legal means, right? I mean, if I was a betting man. And out of the 271 that were stolen from a vehicle, 241 were stolen from unlocked vehicles. You sound like me when I look at my stats every morning. So let's fast forward to this year, right? So far this year, as of September 9th, we've had a reported 288 guns stolen. Out of the 288, 186 were stolen from a vehicle. Out of the 186, who wants to bet? How many were stolen out of an unlocked car? Under 100, above 100, above 110, lower than 90?
140, yeah.
154.
Wow.
Give her another drink. 154 were stolen from unlocked vehicles. Usually, you know, they say, well, Chief, how can we do, what can we do to help you, right? What can we do, right? Besides give the department more money, right? If I could ask one thing today, please spread the message. Lock your vehicle doors, take your valuables with you, and please practice responsible gun ownership. Just spread the word, please. Help us. Just help us. Traffic fatalities. So in 2022, we had a total of 14 traffic-related deaths, in which 5 were pedestrian-related, right? A pedestrian getting hit by a car and unfortunately dying. You know, so we're still focusing on council's initiative for Vision Zero to eliminate all traffic fatalities in our city, while increasing safety and equitable mobility for all. 2023, year to date, we've had 14 year to date traffic-related deaths, in which 7 were pedestrian-related. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, right? And there's multiple factors I could tell you when it comes to traffic fatalities. You know, it could be DUIs, it could be not paying attention to the road, people crossing, not being in a crosswalk, the time of day, it's nighttime speeding. It's a multitude of factors. But at the end of the day, we have traffic fatalities. That's why we have to work as a community to eliminate these deaths. So, you know, we have certain units in our police department that are specialized units that address crime. Beyond Patrol. Patrol does a great job, right? They're the ones out there responding to calls for service day in and day out. They don't get enough credit. I will say that right now. They just do not get enough credit. But we have special units that go out there with a specific purpose: to catch the bad guy, to catch the ones that are holding the guns, to catch the ones that are pulling the trigger. So one of those units is a Special Investigations Section, right? SIS. So year to date, year to date 2023, September 5th, from January, had a pretty slide for you, but I'll just summarize it for you. It really was pretty. About 145 felony arrests, right? They recovered 135 guns, right? This is not from unlocked vehicles. This is from doing their jobs. 18 of those guns were stolen. They recovered over 422 grams of cocaine in addition to other drugs, and about a half a kilo of fentanyl. Yes, there are drugs in our community, and we have to address that, right? Another unit that we have is the community response team. So you have SIS, and then you have the community response team. The community response team responds to community concerns on a certain level, whether it be entering autos, right? Thefts, you know, certain things that are going on in the community. Year to date, we established this team January of this year when this team took over. We felt like we needed another unit to address crime or issues, quality of life issues at the community level. Year to date, they have about 61 felony arrests. They recovered 40 guns, 9 of those stolen, and they recovered about 19 grams of cocaine in addition to other drugs. They're doing a great job out there, these specialized units. We are trying hard to maintain the safety in our community. So we talked about stats, right? So that's crime stats. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not, we are doing some great things in collaboration with our community. And let me preface that, right? And I don't want to say success, right? So, I mean, what's success? What's the definition? Everybody has a definition of success, right? For me, it's progress, right? We're moving in the right direction, right? When I can come up here and say we had no shootings, no deaths, okay, that's success maybe for me as a police chief. You know, I'm hard to impress, right? But we're moving in the right direction. But I want to talk about our achievements as a police department, right? I want to focus there for a little bit. What do we have achieved since myself, my team have ascended in these roles with the assistance of everyone in the Savannah Police Department, with the support and assistance of the community members, with the support and assistance of the dean. I didn't bring give me your reading glasses, Assistant Chief Gavin. No, well. All right, so let's talk about it. So I know, let me see, I'll talk about that later on. Stratified policing. I know, Mr. President, you were interested in stratified policing, right? So stratified policing, we just got that passed through a council, the council meeting about 2 meetings ago, right? 2 or 3 meetings ago. So that is an accountability-based strategy, right? Accountability being the biggest word. That's like the word of the week, the word of the year for me as police chief. Holding ourselves accountable for what we do, how we address crime day in and day out. So stratified policing is an evidence-based framework, organizational framework, with specific methods designed to transform a police department's day-to-day operations. And to be transparent, when I became chief and I worked with my team, I felt that we needed to change the way we did things in the Savannah Police Department on a day-in and day-out basis. How are we addressing crime timely? What levels in the police department are responsible for what? And how are we keeping people accountable? How are we keeping staff accountable for addressing said crimes? So the goal is to create permanent changes that institutionalize proactivity, crime reduction strategies that have a long-term impact on crime. It's going to bring about changes that focuses on systemic reductions of crime. It's going to improve our communication flow. Now, anyone who's been in an organization, you know, communication can stop at a certain level in an organization. We deal with it consistently. We need to stratify policing. And transparency. You know, in law enforcement, we can be pretty private sometimes, right? We've got to be able to pull the curtain away from the windows and let the community see what we're doing and how we're addressing. What is our strategies? Officers will become more efficient in their use of crime, or use of their time, and more effective because they're collaborating not only with internal units, but community members, right? At that ground level. And equally as important, supervisors and commanders will become more engaged daily in their crime reduction strategies, and they are going to be held accountable. They're really going to be held accountable. Our training for stratified policing begins when?
Next week.
Next week. All right, so they're coming in, they're gonna train, they're gonna start off with our analysts, our intel unit, that's the hub, and then the very next week, they're gonna start with command staff. So it begins, and I'm very excited about that. Another achievement is our new CAD RMS system, computer-aided dispatch, and our record management system. That is going to come on board the first quarter of 2024. and that is our CAD system and our record management system will be on board by the fourth quarter of 2024, which is ancient right now in our systems, so we're very excited about this. Savannah Impact Program, we brought that back underneath Assistant Chief Adams. That deals with community reentry, collaborating with our Department of Community Supervision, having a focus on our juveniles that are on probation. Transparency and accountability, we're adding new outward-facing initiatives such as a community, we're telling a secret here today, right? Because we really didn't roll this out to anybody. So we're onboarding an app, right? That everyone here can download. It's a community app. It already got approved, so we're working with the company to build said app. So, Assistant Chief Gavin, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about this app?
Good evening. So part of that, there's different things you can roll into these apps. What we were looking for were one that gave information out that the public needs to know. So you'll be able to see crime stats, you'll be able to pull up things that are going on in the neighborhood. You'll see our news releases and all those other pieces. But on top of that, we also wanted to be able to guide people to non-emergency numbers and areas, so like the 311. So if there's a limb down, if there's a light not working, things like that. Other ways other than calling 911 to report them, there's other ways that those things can be passed on. And so all of those things help alleviate, and it puts it kind of in one place so that you can see where things are. Since most people have a smartphone, that makes it a little easier to do. But that'll be available on phones, computers, tablets, everything. So along with that, we're going to have a tip line that allows a person to remain anonymous, but can pass a lot of information on, photographs, all kinds of things. And we've seen that work out really well with when it comes to eyes and ears, and that is people that are around neighborhoods all day long, Amazon drivers, city workers, people that are traversing our neighborhoods all day long for work will have the ability to, if they see something suspicious or they see something that they know needs to be reported, but they don't feel comfortable doing that, this app will give them the ability to do that. They'll be able to pass information on, pass a photograph, things like that. That'll be monitored by our officers, and we'll be able to turn that information around quickly. So that's probably one of the key points of using the app, is one, to make sure we can pass information and that you can pass information back. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully that'll be in the next 30 to 60 days. We'll be rolling that out publicly. So we also added in, there's a lot of technology that we've been pushing through in the last 6 months that council has supported, and we are hopefully you'll be able to get information. You'll be able to send something to an officer that's doing a good job, and then also let us know if an officer's not doing a good job. Our IA Pro database allows you to access that portal from your home. It allows you to pass information about officers' conduct, whether it's good or bad. But it'll also allow you to get feedback through that same portal. So it kind of alleviates the need for you to come into the building if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or if you just want to pass something along that you saw an officer was doing well. And so this, again, is another way to be transparent and open. If you do have a case against something and you wanted to update on that, you'll be able to get it through this portal. And very easy to use, and it allows you to do that from your home.
All right, thank you. And for the sake of time and to allow some conversation, some questions, I'm going to move at a quicker pace. But if you want me to slow down, tell me, okay? But I want to allow us to really have a conversation, okay? Cool?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we formed a community engagement division. Like I said, Corporal Barry Lewis oversees that division along with Major Young. You know, we really wanted to be strategic in how we engage our community. You know, it's great to have hot dogs and hamburgers, right? But the question, why are we doing that and where are we doing that? Who are we trying to reach, right? So, and he's done a great job making inroads in our community when it comes to community engagement. I want to talk about some new positions that we onboarded on the police department or will be onboarded on the police department. First one being the Director of Police Administration. Go ahead and give the mic to Mr. Miller so he can talk about what his role is.
That was terrible. Let's try this again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All right, that was much better. My name is Joshua Miller. I'm hailing from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, transitioning out of the service and glad to be joining Savannah Police Department. So my main role is going to be serving as a civilian chief of staff alongside with Chief Gavin and Major Halford and helping just really develop our civilian support personnel and really working towards expanding that role over the next couple of years to see if there's ways that we can enhance the civilian workforce development in the department so that we're better able to assist our sworn counterparts and just seeing if there are ways that we can cover down so the uniformed personnel can focus on policing. Is that covered, Chief?
That's great. The next position that we just made a selection on is our intelligence unit manager. We didn't have one before, right? Like Assistant Chief Gavin spoke about, we're moving forward quickly with a lot of technology to address issues in our community, to be proactive. So we really need a manager to bring all these technologies together and to achieve the vision that we have. So this person is going to really collaborate with all levels of the police department and the community, really dig deep when it comes to proactive analysis, and work hard to achieve the mission and vision of the police department. The other position that literally, right before this meeting, I was interviewing the last two candidates, Assistant Chief Gavin and I, along with a panel, is our Director of Strategic Initiatives. So this individual will manage the strategic plan for the police department. And that was really important for me as a chief. Do we have a strategic plan? What do we want to accomplish a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And what milestones do we need to hit, right? And how we're going to reassess that. So I went to my boss and said, hey, we need this, we need that. And he's very supportive. And I'm excited that we narrowed it down to the last two candidates. And I should have a selection onboarded by next week. Well, person selected. So this person will also work with the community, right? Have focus groups and figure out what you want us to do to make you feel better in your community. So I'm excited about this position. Major Herod, this is your slide. This is collaboration and communication, right? You approve that? Go ahead.
And one of the things that we had to do was we went back and kind of looked at what we were doing with the other municipalities. I mean, even though we're all in the same profession, sometimes we don't always play in the same sandbox. And so it was important that we solidified that and, continue expounding on the collective expertise that we have within Chatham County. And so what we're doing now with them, we're meeting on a regular basis. We're attending their meetings, they're attending our meetings, and we're sharing information and we're collaborating with them on a regular basis. I mean, we do a lot with them, we support the municipalities, and that's always a good thing. And so since the demerger, it was really important that we continue this collaborative effort so that we can have a solidified approach to our crime problems.
Technology, assistant solving cases. So CID is using more technology to solve cases.
So one of the things that's been a really big asset for us is this the fact that things that we all have, and that's cameras. That has been a monumental, probably the best tool that's been out there for us, and it really helped us last year as we were seeking to solve our homicides. We're expanding that. Major Gavin is working on some other things that we're going to integrate into our CERIC intel as far as being able to access multiple cameras. We're moving to a real-time crime center where we can be in a position where as things are going on, we're dialing all our resources in, patrol, our intel, SIS, and we'll be able to just capitalize off all of our strengths.
Offender apprehension, utilizing SIS, our federal partners to go after some of these individuals?
So another strength that we have, and it was talked about earlier by the chief, is being able to push information over to our specialized units and to the feds. The SIS, they've done an outstanding job in apprehending people that we've been looking for. A lot of times the detectives were getting multiple cases, and they're getting case on top of case, and so if they're looking for assistance, and a lot of times they've been very instrumental in seeking people out and going ahead and apprehending them quickly. There's a lot of times that we use the U.S. Marshals when we're not able to locate people immediately with our resources. The U.S. Marshals have other things at their disposal, but just time and a lot of undercover people and cameras, and so they're able to put time into those critical people that we need to go out and then apprehend.
I'll let you go. All right, and rounding out our 2023 initiatives and achievements year to date, and it's just a couple of snapshots. We have our PAL program. So that's our Police Athletic and Activities League. And if you recall, we had it years ago, it went away. It's under budgeted, wasn't supported probably the way it should have been. It was brought back to life under the command of Assistant Chief Adams. So I'm gonna let him talk a bit about the PAL and the resurgence of PAL.
We brought PAL back in 2019. Again, we have funding from City Council that's given us an opportunity to invest in some of our young kids. Right now, to date, we've served about 225 kids. We also served them with giving out school supplies that the DNA helped with some of the money that you gave to give back book bags and things like that. So we appreciate you guys for that. Right now, they're in the middle of their football season. We have some academic classes that we have been working with as well. We're getting ready to start Boy Scouts, all our tutorials. So everything is going well with PAL. Again, we appreciate your support and everything that you give. And maybe the next time we come, you'll see some slides of some of our young men.
And there's a methodology behind that. They drive vehicles that are unmarked. They don't have cages and things like that. It's to keep people calm, and the whole point of there is to move them into services. I can tell you that, and a lot of you are probably aware, you've dealt with people with mental illness or drug and alcohol disorders, where if you go back just a couple of years, arresting them was the only thing we could do. There were not services in place. There were not a way to connect them to those services. And one of the things that we worked on, and we've been working on this since 2015, it came to fruition in 19, and then right as we started, the pandemic hit. So really the last 2 years have been key parts of it. But since we started, we're up to almost getting close to 700 people that our BHU officers have responded to. And what they do is they'll respond and lead those officers to go back and do policing. And they'll take that call and work with that person. They'll get them into services. And what we do, it's different, is we'll do follow-up. So we'll come back afterwards, because just getting them there isn't gonna make it go away. Some of these people, it takes multiple times, it takes multiple things, but our BHU officers do the follow-ups. We have clinicians, licensed clinicians and doctors that ride with our officers. And so they're there on scene. They can make an assessment of somebody and give us the approval to take them to the hospital where they can hold them and try to get them stabilized and medicated. So there's a lot of work that's gone into it. It's been a very successful group, but one of the main things is that we flipped that number around. 92% of the people we dealt with went to jail before we started. And then since we've been doing this, that number's flipped to 90% go into services, and the 10% go to jail. And a lot of times the 10% are going because they have to. They were either involved in a specific crime where it wasn't something that we could pass along to put them into a hospital with. But for the most part, all of those other services, we've been able to put that network together, and the BHCC Gateway on Durant Avenue has been our, one of our big partners in this program, and that's where we get the clinicians, the doctors, and we're also using residents to add to that for the remainder of this year. But we also are the first police department in Georgia to have a therapy dog. So if you haven't seen Goose, the therapy dog, he's a black lab that was specifically trained for therapy. He's not there to bark at people. He's not there to bite people. He's there to get pet. And he likes to get petted. You bring him into schools, you bring him around people, but he's also there because it's shown that they do calm people down. These dogs are very good at taking high stress situations and bringing things down.
So I asked the BHU, could I keep Goose in my office daily? I need therapy.
Goose has to come by and see me each day. But, and Goose got his name because Julie Kavanaugh, the corporal who's in charge of the BHU, she said that the idea came to her that everybody needs a co-pilot, and so Goose was the co-pilot. And he has his own Facebook page, so if you look him up, Goose Therapy Dog, there's a lot of pictures.
Along really quick, one of the first questions I was asked when I became permanent chief was, well, Chief, what's going to be your strategy to address crime in our city? And for me, it was important to really comprehend that there's not a panacea. There's not one size that fits all when it comes to addressing crime in our community. So it was important for me to work with our, my partners, our partners, to come up with a comprehensive crime reduction strategy. And some of those pillars, and I'm not gonna go into each and every one of them, so be here for a minute. One is data-driven strategies, knowing when and where things should happen, being proactive. Again, leveraging technology. We have a lot of technology coming on board. Recruitment, retention, and training, and I'll talk about that in a second. We have to have a police department and a well-trained police department to address and to respond to issues in our community. Having a holistic approach. It's not just enforcement. We cannot arrest ourselves out of every issue, right? It's working with community partners. It's working with other agencies. It's working with government, looking at root causes of crime, being transparent, and again, the big A word, accountability, okay? Community partnerships and relationships. That's equally as important, just like tonight, having this conversation, right, and developing those relationships. I do want to talk about a little bit about leveraging technology. And this is not a popular discussion, I found out, having conversations. School zone cameras. Anybody here get a ticket yet?
I have. And I got it on a Sunday. Why did I get it on a Sunday? It's just school on Sunday.
That's
Sunday school.
Amen.
Why did I get it on Sunday? I had Canadian friend. They had asked that question.
Yeah, I mean, so if you got one on a Sunday, did you pass that on to anybody?
Well, it said I have to wait. You go to Alabama for your ticket.
No, ma'am.
I had to wait 60 days to protest.
No, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So we have court.
I got the receipt, I got the receipt.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure we're clear. One of the things that school zone cameras, there was a lot of people for them, a lot of people against them. I can tell you that, yes, people are saying it's an out-of-town company. There's several companies in the nation that do those type things, that do the cameras, and the one we picked didn't use radar, because radar, there's all kinds of things you can do with radar when it's raining and bunting and things like that. We went with a company that used lasers. And so if you ever seen a laser, the laser points on your car, so it's very specific as to what it's pulling over, what speed it's checking, and what vehicle it is. The other part of it was we watched the county roll theirs out, and I went back and asked Chief Hadley a year later, okay, we're about to move towards ours, what would you say is the biggest problem you've had? And he said it was the way we rolled it out, pushed it out, and so we tried to do everything we could to mitigate that. We put out all of our messaging, did interviews and all the platforms, and really tried to say that one, they're running during the entire school day, and you only get a ticket if you're going 11 miles an hour over the speed limit. So if when our officers are in these school zones, they can write you for 1 mile an hour over, and it's a much more expensive ticket. And it has effects on your insurance, your license, it's points. This is considered an administrative ticket. And it doesn't go against your insurance, it doesn't go against your license. But it does give you a little reminder of, I gotta slow down. And the biggest thing we're seeing in the last couple of years is people not paying attention and driving through school zones too fast. And so we did studies beforehand and showed how many vehicles and how many people were speeding through school zones. And I'm not just talking about at lunchtime, I'm talking about when kids are walking into the schools, crossing the road, doing things like that. We had several near misses 2 years ago, which is what prompted us to move forward and ask council to do this. And those near misses were kids getting hit, but they didn't get hit hard. Let's put it that, they didn't die.
You're kidding me.
And those things are because people weren't paying attention. It wasn't any other reason than someone was looking at their phone and not looking up. So these cameras make people pay attention. Since we've implemented them, there's been over 42,000 tickets given out. That's in 14 school zones. And just to say, there's probably been double that that have come through during the warning period when it first came out, when it first started. But we've seen and we've been able to document that one thing, people are staying away from school zones, so you have less vehicles traveling through school zones. People are literally avoiding them, which is fine. But we also saw an 82% reduction in speeding. So the people that are going through, if anything, that $100 is making people pay attention. And so for us, that's not a high price to pay. And really the reality of this is, you're going 11 miles an hour over in a school zone. So you really shouldn't have anything to say about it. You're wrong by 10 miles. My daughter got a warning ticket, and I made her pay me.
What about the Sunday thing?
Well, and so, what I was gonna say though,
What about the schools, it's summer, the school is.
they do not run during the summer. They do not run on Sundays.
Can I get my $100?
If you give me your ticket number, you give me your name and I will track that down, and I guarantee you, I will get that, if you did pay it, and it was real, but that goes through, so every ticket that's sent gets sent to our police officers. We have to check them first. So people think that this camera is just sending this to Alabama or whatever. every ticket that's written, an officer verifies the information on the tag is the person who owns the car, and that it's that vehicle. And so that's verified by our police officers, and then they send that information through. And then after that, there is a court hearing every Friday at the courthouse. Judge Yancey holds court specifically for school zone cameras. And so you can get on that docket if you really wanna argue it wasn't you, but I can tell you, every person that's come to me so far, they're not reading the ticket right, and it has been during a school day, you know, and it's been during that time period where people say, well, the flashers weren't on. It's the entire school day. Everything we push out says from the morning flashers all the way through the afternoon flashers, even when it's not flashing, it's 35. People are going 46 and they're getting a ticket. So slow down. I don't want any more tickets. It's not about money, it's not about generating anything. It's about slowing people down. And I think, like I said, we're seeing that reduction, and hopefully that will continue and it changes habits. And that's the idea behind it, is that it changes
So
habits.
who do I call?
I'm gonna come see you after we're done.
Summer school was not in session.
I guarantee you, if it happens, I'm gonna fix it. Promise. Gonna see her
All right,
out.
so let's do this. Let's do the Chief Gavin said, we have an 82% reduction in school zones when it comes to our speeding. So a question has come up. Hey, Chief, let's do this after the meeting.
No, I'm not, no, please.
Okay.
No, please. It's not about me, it's about the children.
Thank you.
Please.
Appreciate it.
Not take away from
Good? Okay. So regarding the speed zone cameras, right? So we've gotten complaints about speeding on Broughton Street. Whitaker and Drake, right? So the question is, and you probably know better than me, can speed zone cameras be put on those streets? And I believe that's a no, because you can't run radar on those streets, right?
No, but the street has to be a radar certified street, and we do have, that is a radar certified street for the city. One of the things that we use that for is we use it for our enforcement, because our officers are out there enforcing that, our traffic officers. The only issue when you start blanketing a city with these type cameras, we went specifically for school zones, mainly out of the public health portion of it for children. But when you start blanketing neighborhoods with cameras like the speed cameras, it has two effects. You end up getting a lot of local people, and it usually that backlash pushes back. We've looked at a lot of technologies and looked at how cities handle them. We feel that we can do those portions of that traffic enforcement using speed trailers and other pieces rather than just getting electronic tickets to people. I think there's more to it, and it takes a lot of information sharing to do that.
Well, now that I know.
And they get used to leaving them in their car.
It's not against the law to do that?
It's not against the law to do that.
Holy crap. Excuse my French.
It should be.
Yeah, it should be against the law.
But I mean, you know, our biggest concern is, you know, it's not that people who are supposed to have guns.
Yeah.
It's the people that are taking these guns shouldn't have guns.
Well, it should be
And so-
legal, it should be against the law to leave it in an unlocked vehicle when you go into the house for the night.
But if you make a law about that, what you're gonna get is people
Lying,
lying,
I'm from
saying,
Canada,
"I don't have
I'm an
guns."
idiot, so anyways, thank you.
Next time we did our best without animated slides and all that, making it look pretty. But I do want to give a quick status of the police department, right? So our total staffing is 536 sworn. Right now we have 420 officers, not including our professional staff. So right now I have 116 vacancies. I will say this, we don't use it as an excuse. It's a reality. We don't We don't lay our heads down at night and say, hey, you know, we can't do A, B, or C because we have 160 vacancies. We really try to exceed expectations, our own and yours. You know, we brought some great initiatives onto the police department. We've raised salaries in collaboration with, you know, assistance from our community and government council, sign-on bonuses, created a lateral entry program, and we've had some progress. When we first started back in January, we had 140-something vacancies. So, you know, if we can kind of slow down people leaving, and I want to say, you know, the sentiment of why they're leaving has changed. It's not, well, SPD is a bad department. It's not that. It's, hey, I want to get out of the profession. I want to move closer to family and things like that. You know, I'll take that, right? But it's also the mentality when it comes to law enforcement. It's not as popular as it used to be to want to be the police, right? So kind of getting those individuals and bringing them in the police department and keeping them is a priority for us. So right now we have about 20 officers in training. Our next graduation date for we have about 10 in the academy right now. They graduate September 25th. So like I said, we're moving ahead. We've hired 23 laterals since the inception of the lateral entry program. So my goal is to soon break 100. If we break 100, I'm happy because that means we're really headed in the right direction, full steam. So I'll end on that, Mr. President.
Chief, and we're set that.
Just real quick, everyone, I wanted to say hi to those of you who don't know me. My name is Sabrina. I live downtown. I'm very invested in the downtown area, and crime is, I think, one of our biggest focuses. I've met Captain Beatty and Corporal Flynn. I've passed on some of your concerns, but if you have any concerns other than, I've had a lot of the speeding, a lot of requests of the speeding on Whitaker, Drayton, and Broughton and Price. But anything you have, I've noticed my email is not on the DNA website right now, but I'll make sure that gets put on there. Please email me. I'm happy to meet with them and pass any concerns you guys have. And for those of you, the law enforcement individuals that are here that I haven't met, just know me. If you get an email from me, that's me. So thank you. Thanks, everybody.
88 guns or unlocked cars or stolen from vehicles and everything else. Have any of those weapons been traced to actual violent crime incidents in the city?
It's very hard to trace it back.
Right. To which gun? Yeah, that's correct.
It's very hard. One, because it's one thing for someone to report a stolen, it's another thing to trace the gun back to an actual crime. I think it's very rare that we're able to do that. But there's instances where we have confiscated a stolen gun, right? And utilized NIBIN, our National Ballistic Information Network, and it's come back to certain scenes, right? With, the shell casings, right? So we can do some linkages, but it's very hard to trace a stolen gun from a car to an actual crime regarding data. But again, I can assure you that you're not stealing the guns to take it home to put it in the cabinet for for safekeeping or memory. It's they're being used for legal means.
And follow up on that one. Recently, the Savannah Morning News did a series of articles about pawn shops and weapons being sold from there. And they tracked or traced, I think it was 10 or 15% of the weapons that were from various pawn shops, one on Durant Avenue, that were actually involved in homicides or violent crimes. Has the city or your office gone to them and the ATF to put pressure on them to pull those licenses? Because the articles indicated that the ATF was just not doing anything.
So that's not necessarily true. I will say that before the summer and before we had the SAC, the supervisor agent in charge, before he left, I had several meetings with him regarding these pawn shops and tracing back guns to certain pawn shops and things like that, and having a plan to address that. These federal firearm deals and things like that. So, I would say it's on our radar. The ATF would take lead on that, because of the nexus, because it's, you know, selling guns and things like that. But I will say that we are working towards a plan, regarding that, so that's not necessarily true to say nothing's being done.
I work with Scenic Chatham County, part of Scenic America, and I know we're talking about violent crime, but it seems to me that criminals kind of decide this is a place where we can get away with things, because things like a mailbox that gets graffitied and full of stickers, or the new lampposts on Broughton Street are full of stickers, and it's not attended to, somehow says, you can get away with a lot here. And so I'm asking you, what can you do about this, or do you pass it on to 311 or maintenance or something? This is a picture of what we've got here all over town right now. It seems like we're kind of out of control and we don't get to this. So perhaps you could speak to that.
So, this is an issue, right?
Yes, it is.
It's an issue. And I've addressed this, and some people say it's gang graffiti and stuff like that. Hard to prove that, but it's graffiti, right? This is a quality of life issue, right? This is quality of life, and we do take notice of that. I will say this. Matter of fact, Assistant Chief Adams, he is going to several meetings with several of our government entities, code compliance, and sanitation. They're starting a beautification committee, and so their job is to address issues like this, right? I believe the next meeting is about a week or 2 weeks from now. Next week, all right? So this is unacceptable. We take notice of this. I would say if you see something like this, definitely call 311. Okay, if you see an officer, tell us, we will refer this to 311 and try and clean this mess up. I don't even know if you can do anything about this stuff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it is an issue. You talk about graffiti and stickers and vandalism, but there is a plan in place. There is a committee that's already been formed, and they're just waiting to roll out the plan. I think a couple more meetings, and you will start to see this council and resources address said issues.
One block away from me, 500 blocks of Capitol, at 11 a.m. on a clear day, a young woman was sexually assaulted. She cried for help, neighbors responded. I was there for 20 minutes after 911 was called, and there was no response. There was no SPD there. There was no SCAD security there. That can't be acceptable.
No, it's not. You're right. No response at all.
Well,
or it's just not a timely response.
From the time that I arrived, it was 20 minutes until I left, and it probably took me 4 or 5 minutes to get there out of my house. So I can tell you for 25 minutes, there was no response. Yeah, absolutely none.
Yeah. I will say this. Again, I don't pride myself in making excuses. I would have to pull up that call and talk to my staff afterwards. Major Young, right here. I would like to get some details on that because I need to know where the breakdown took place. If it was, on us, if we were just stretched out for calls for service. I don't know, what time it was dispatched. Again, response times is very important. And, unfortunately, we don't get there when we want to get there. But something that we work on. Again, I would have to look at the time of day, how many staff we had on the street that day. But my heart goes out for that victim that experienced that because you want an immediate response. So if you could give that information to my major, then we'll find out exactly what took place. And if there's anything that we could have done better, I'll ensure that gets done to the jail now.
But I don't see an attack as a misdemeanor. This was,
Oh, so that.
He was beating her up in the square.
Yeah. So specifically, yeah, again, I wanna get the information. When did that happen?
A couple weeks ago.
Okay, all right, so we can get that information, if you can give it, we'll look into it. Again, the response that we're giving, saying, hey, what do you want me to do? That's not acceptable. Let me just say that right now. That is, trying to find another word so I don't say something inappropriate. Intolerable? Fireable. Yeah, so we don't, that's not acceptable, so can you, give that information to, Major Young, let's follow up on that, and we'll drill down, because again, that is intolerable.
Sorry. When the city did the ordinance a few years ago to keep those scooters out, like European cities and others have, where they're thrown everywhere, they didn't write the ordinance tight enough. So the problem with the ordinance is if there is what they call an anchor place. So the place on Liberty Street that has the scooters out front, you can rent the electric scooter there, but it has to be brought back to there. That's the loophole. They just can't leave it at Bull and Harris Street. They have to bring it back to that location. So therefore, they're not banned like we really wanted them to be a few years ago. I'm told they're working on the ordinance to change that. I don't know if that'll happen this year or next. I've heard too many promises before. But that's why those Lulu scooters are still out there.
They can go.
Okay.
If they go over 20, 50 cc's, I mean, it really goes by that engine only allows them to get up to a certain speed. The problem is you can adjust them, and a lot of younger people know how to make them go faster. And then some of the other things that aren't considered a bicycle, the hoverboard that you're talking about isn't considered a bicycle, and it's not considered a motorized bike. It's a wheel.
It's not under the ordinance.
It doesn't fall into that, but there's a lot of stuff that isn't covered under those type things, and really we have to look at, there's people that rent them here, so that has to be a bigger discussion about some of those things, and we've seen other cities enact some ordinances to help control some of those things, but it's no real easy answer to it. But the ones that are using them, motorized bicycles where you can pedal them, but they can go, most of those do not go over the legal limit to make them a motorcycle or
bicycles and motorized vehicles in squares.
And sidewalks.
And sidewalks, you can't hear them. And about 20 years ago, I don't know if you'll remember, but there were two nuns from St. Vincent's walking through one of the squares, and a bicyclist smashed into both of them. They were startled by the bike, they didn't hear it. The one ended up in the hospital for many, many months. It just continues. And now we're seeing those little black scooters that you can't hear, and also those one wheel,
Hoverboard.
Yeah, hoverboards, I guess they're called. And there's a group of people, kids, young adults, that I see every night from 5, 6, 7 going down Bull Street. They will latch themselves on the back of tour buses and hold on. I'm down in Madison Square smoking a cigar every evening, and it's just my thing. So and walking a dog, my dog gets startled. I'm afraid I'm going to end up in the spokes, and it just continues.
I checked with David about who to call because of a homeless woman using the bathroom in Green Square. He gave me the name of, who'd you give me? I can't remember.
Captain Beatty, I believe.
Captain Beatty. My neighbor called twice and left messages.
I did too.
Nobody ever called them back. We have somebody living in the square all the time, every night. Takes up residence there. It's not just Green Square, it's every square downtown. I walk at 6:30 in the morning. The homeless are everywhere in the squares. They're living on Broughton Street by the doors of alcoves of businesses. You walk certain places in the squares and you cannot stand the marijuana smell that you smell when you walk at 6:30 in the morning. But nobody ever called back, and the person is still there. We still have another person that's there all the time with his scooter. So what do we do about that?
Well, you just told the chief.
Okay, thank you.
Word out about blocking car doors. I wonder if you've broken down the number of entering autos of residents' cars versus visitors' cars? Because if it's mainly visitors' cars, maybe a greater emphasis can be pushed on somehow getting the word out to them, so that you're not spending so much time with this kind of junk instead of important stuff.
We probably haven't broken it down by residents and visitors, but it's something that we can look into. Oh, we have? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, so at one point, I did exactly that. I asked for a breakdown of, and we identified about 70 vehicles that over a 2-month period that were part of hotels. And then the rest were in neighborhoods and in our neighborhoods downtown and things like that.
There are
But
STVRs all over the neighborhood, so those are visitors.
But yeah, I mean, if you're gonna start identifying, you know, those specific houses and things like that, it's a little harder for us to grab that data, but
It's not the house, it's the car. If somebody's reported that their car's been broken into or something's been stolen, don't you ask the person, do you live here?
well, we do, and we get their address, and then,
Okay.
so the address is there, but it's where the vehicle gets broken into also. So if it happens downtown, and the reality is, it's still a common thing for us to do, so there is both though. And so we're not just saying it's thus the residents, but the majority are residents. But there is a big portion that is, the hotels. And so I've met with the TLC, I've met with the hotel owners, and I've told them to, you know, we're working with them to try and help mitigate. Because nobody wants to hand somebody a room key and say, hey, your car's probably gonna get broken into. So they're working with us to try and find a way to make that. And a lot of them use city garages. So we want them to make sure we're putting some signage up and just making that aware.
Wrote up some flyers to give out to the guests that come in there, and the hotels refuse.
Refuse to give them out.
Refuse to give them out. They don't want to tell their guests that there's a crime.